This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, a very dull utopia society wants our crew to stay forever.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show. We're putting the humanities back into science fiction. My name is Gep, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Izix.
Hi.
And this week, the episodes are all out of order, so I don't know where this is supposed to be in your watch through, but, you know.
It could be a plus or minus one, well, you don't really know.
At least the plots don't tie together, so, you know,
True.
You don't miss much.
But what if they did?
Oh, wow, that would be weird.
It's like, so last week you shrunk, and then next week you're going to shrink. What's going on?
Yes, the rest of the series are still shrunk.
That would be kind of amusing, honestly. Like, with the smallest crew in Starfleet. Literally.
Alright, so this week's episode is called The Time Trap. So it's little to do with time, lots to do with trapping.
Yes. I guess it's like time has been trapped and it's also not working properly, I guess.
This is a concept that they keep coming back to in Star Trek. Sometimes better than others. This one was fine, but not as interesting as some other ones. The one in Voyager was also fine. I don't think it's something they know what to do with quite.
It's something that they want to touch upon, but it doesn't. They don't really know what they want to do with it after that, other than, well, we have to sort of go through our normal episode beats here. So
Yep.
Yeah.
But no one knows what we're talking about yet, so we'll get to that later. This episode was written by Joyce Perry, who hasn't penned anything else we've really looked at. She was an actress and writer in this era, has a lot of roles like secretary and secretary and secretary.
Don't forget the mother.
Yeah, that too. Also wrote like scattered episodes of other things like Ironsides and Land of the Lost, and you know, that kind of shows.
Also, the Waltons. Don't forget them.
And we've got no guest stars because there was supposed to be
series, yeah.
There was supposed to be one, but he was not available to reprise his role as Klingon Commander Kor.
Drat, foiled again.
So voiced by James Doohan, who also voices like 4 other characters, as does Nicole Nichols.
So you'll be hearing a lot of the same voice, just slightly more like this. Yes, Kurt, You're going to suffer.
I feel like it's a little mean. A couple of the reviews I saw of this are like, the voice work isn't good. It's like, the voice work has never been good.
What do you expect? It's Star Trek the Animated Series. Come on.
Yeah.
They paid, the main lead actors and almost no one else. Come on.
All right, we can jump in. I don't know. There's some stuff to talk about in this one, but this episode's going to run through really quick, so. The Enterprise arrives at the Delta Triangle.
Wait a moment. It's in space. How can it be a two-dimensional object?
Yeah, how can it be a flat triangle? The letter delta is also already a triangle, so it's a little redundant, honestly.
Or maybe it's a delta that sticks out of the triangle. So it's like a a three-dimensional object, but it's still just intersecting 2D objects.
The Delta Pyramid doesn't sound as good, nor does the Delta Triangular Prism.
Maybe the Delta Airlines trap.
Feels like it. So this is a large region of uninhabited space where ships have been mysteriously disappearing, because this seems to be the entire show now, is ships have been mysteriously disappearing. Go there and mysteriously disappear.
It's almost like someone's trying to get rid of the Enterprise. What's up?
So inside we have space fireworks again. They love that. The ship's sensors start to go haywire, so they can't tell what's going on, and they are very soon accosted by a Klingon ship.
Dun 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 dun.
They briefly exchange fire. Despite obviously doing no damage to each other, the Klingon ship disappears.
Well, cloaking device or super cloaking device?
Doesn't seem consistent with the cloaking device, but with the sensors not working, they've got no idea what's going on. But 2 more Klingon ships were following close behind, obviously in an effort to destroy the Enterprise and have it blamed on just another disappearance in the Delta Triangle.
Well, this is kind of a clever tactic here. It's like, this Enterprise ship has been causing us all sorts of trouble, and kind of nice to get rid of Kirk and all that, and we'll lure them in here to this bit of territory that is... Wait a moment. How'd they lure them in? They were sent here. Oh gosh, Klingons infiltrated Starfleet Command!
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny if the whole thing was just like, oh, this is just a place where Klingons and raiders have lured ships and trapped them and started a big rumor about how things disappear here so that no one notices.
Well, maybe that's what they thought originally, but they didn't expect there actually be a space pothole.
We've started all these... Oh, wait, we disappeared too.
Whoops.
One of the Klingon commanders hails them, blaming them falsely, obviously, because they saw the ship didn't explode, for destroying their lead ship. Kirk's not having any of it, and orders that they make for the spot that the Klingon ship disappeared. I guess he thinks they're no match for the 2 ships at once, and maybe he's right, though it's hard to tell what the combat capabilities of this ship are supposed to be, if we're being honest.
Yeah, the power of the Klingon seems to wane and wax depending on the needs of the plot here, so...
The Klingon ships give chase, taking the Enterprise's deflectors down just before they reach the spot, and also disappear.
Well, I guess we solved the problem of the Delta Triangle here. It actually is disappearance. All right, let's go report back. Oh, wait.
The ship's instruments continue to go haywire. The crew experiences severe vertigo-like symptoms, and the ship flies through what looks like a spinning space tunnel.
Cool. We're in the time tunnel episode here.
Soon the ship exits, but not into normal space, but a vast ship graveyard with many strange alien ships from every era of civilization.
A lot of them are just, rejected designs from the one, insectoid alien ship from beyond the farthest star.
They do have a good variety. It's fun.
Yes.
It's better than a lot of starship graveyards you get later when they have to actually 3D animate or make models.
It's like, well, we'll just copy and paste here a lot. It'll be fine.
They even find some old Earth ships, including the first one to ever have warp drive that disappeared on its 3rd voyage. And that ship has life signs, as do many of the others, leading Spock to speculate that maybe the descendants of the original ships are still living on board.
Well, this does kind of beg some questions about how they're able to maintain their systems here and life support and all that sort of stuff. But maybe we'll get an in-depth explanation about all this as we progress.
Yeah, because it's that era of Star Trek. The Klingon ship is also here and approaches the Enterprise to finish the conflict that they started outside. Both ships open fire, but nothing happens.
Oh, wait, there must be some sort of laser and phaser dampening field here, and that's going to be an important part in solving this whole mystery of how we're gotten trapped here and how we get out of here, is to overcome that capabilities, and and this is a big clue, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's that era of Star Trek. Both Kirk and the Klingon Captain Kor are beamed off of their respective ships and materialize in a large council chamber with a giant half-circular table lining one wall full of representatives of dozens of different species, several that we've seen before, several we haven't, including a Vulcan man and an Orion woman who seem to be sort of the de facto leaders.
Yes, there's also a proto-Kazinti here, the big cat person with like little fish things, ear things going on. It's a little weird, but we'll actually see actual Kazinti later, and they look a little bit different.
And one of the plant people from the other episode.
Oh, yeah. We just copy and paste some more designs here of aliens we've already come up with here. We'll be fine. No one will notice.
The Orion woman named Davina informs them that they are in a weird little pocket universe that many ships have fallen into over the years, and there's no way out from.
Well, I guess you guys have a lot of experience here. could you at least share all the information you're able to garner about this environment? So maybe we could put our heads together and solve something.
You just can't leave. That's all the information about the environment. You can't leave.
No. Well, these guys are no help at all.
Despite there being a wide array of cultures, several of whom were even enemies for centuries before being trapped here, they've all found a way to forge a peaceful society in this place that they call Elysia, because they're all stuck here together, so you may as well.
Yeah, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. Of course, the whole immortality sort of side effect's a little weird.
Yeah, the peace is enforced with psionic powers, because a lot of them have psionic powers.
Well, that's kinda cool.
That stop them from using phasers and things.
The power of the mind overcomes the power of phasers.
And to ensure that peace is upheld, they have prohibited any form of violence and hold starship captains fully responsible for the actions of their crew. And if anyone on a ship is violent in any way for any reason, the ship and crew will be put into stasis for a century.
So you basically have your eyes closed and you wake up a century later?
Yeah, I've never understood how that works as a penal system.
Like, in Red Dwarf, it at least kind of makes sense. It's like, yeah, we don't really want to put up with your antics before we come, drop you off at the next port. So we'll basically freeze you in time until then. So we don't have to put up with you. But as far as, just sort of, well, we're all going to be here again and still interacting afterwards, it doesn't really kind of work out at all.
So this really isn't a big deal because everyone here is functionally immortal.
Yes.
They've all lived for centuries. They're going to live for centuries more. They are, in fact, not the ship's descendants, but the original crew.
Yeah, well, I get. Wait a moment. You guys have been here for centuries and you haven't had kids yet? What's up?
Well, they don't go into that. Maybe they did.
Maybe the part of the time weirdness is preventing it. We should investigate that. Add more clues to our situation here to solve this problem.
So Kirk comments that they've created an ideal society, and it's no wonder they don't really want to leave. But like, oh no, we all really want to leave. We just can't.
It's like, yeah, this peace and harmony is great and all. We kind of like to leave, but it's all right. Let's give it up. Whatever.
So neither Kirk or the Klingons accept this, and they, while being observed by the Council's psionic powers, so we can keep going back and getting it's like in a reality show when you see what's happening and then you cut to the character in another room going and that's what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
But with psionic powers.
Yeah, I got to keep the Council of Dole people relevant for the episode for a little while, I guess.
So they're all trying to come up with ways to escape, and the council is going, well, that's foolish, but newcomers always have to try to escape for themselves.
All right, well, I guess you're not going to get in the way of us trying. That's good.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. They're taking that, letting the toddler try to climb the bookcase and figure out they can't approach.
Yeah. So as opposed to being an actual obstacle to trying to do things, and it's like, oh no, it's dangerous to try, so we're not going to prevent you from even trying, and sort of similar nonsense you sometimes run into science fiction and other things. But it is kind of refreshing in a way there.
Yeah, it is kind of nice. Yeah, we were all like that once. Let them tire themselves out.
Newbies, they'll understand in time. Don't.
Spock has come to the conclusion that escape is actually impossible. They simply do not have enough power to break out into normal space, and to make matters worse, whatever this pocket universe dealie is degrading their dilithium crystals at an alarming rate, and they only have a few days left to make an escape attempt should they find a way to try.
They just got their dilithium unspiraled, too. Drat.
The Klingons, however, are not taking this so well, and despite not having any more power than the Enterprise, they're going to try to force through anyway.
Oh, good luck, guys.
So the Klingon ship enters the space tunnel, but is soon thrown back into Elysium. This attempt, however, gives Spock an idea.
Wait a moment. They tried it and failed. We could try it and fail. But what if we didn't try? No. That's what the other people are doing. What if we tried together? There we go.
So they arrange a meeting with the Klingons and all agree that if they're trying to escape, they should form a temporary alliance and combine the power of both ships, linking their engines and navigational computers in a complex cross-species collaboration thing.
Yeah, so they're going to physically link the ships together and tie in all their systems, and it's going to be crazy.
Spock is uncharacteristically emotional and pats the Klingons on the back, congratulating them for their spirit of cooperation.
Well, this is weird. But good on you, Spock, for being nice to the Klingons.
However, no sooner do Kirk and Spock leave that the Klingon commander gives orders that they make explosive capsules capable of sabotaging the Enterprise as soon as they are back to normal space.
Kor, you're kind of a jerk, aren't you?
Yeah, it really is. They're so fun-loving in the DS9 comeback. It's like, aha, remember that time I tried to destroy the Federation flagship? Good times.
Yeah.
The next 2 days, the crews work together with much tension and the Klingons poking around suspiciously, but Spock is in a very, very forgiving mood. He's also in a very handsy mood, touching everyone.
You're just like, I'm just going to put my hands here and hope you don't mind. Let me know if you do. But, until you do, though, I'm going to be putting my hand here.
Now, McCoy is very worried about this because Spock is acting weird, but Spock is also the only one smart enough to make the calculations necessary for them to get out of here.
Yeah, so maybe Spock's been taken over by one of the council people who's secretly trying to manipulate them so they fail their quest, or alternatively is behind the calculations in the first place, and they were unable to escape previously because the other council people prevented them from putting their plan into action, or a bunch of other possibilities here.
Why do you keep trying to make these things interesting? You know what we're doing here.
I have a creative impulse, and I need to express it.
Kirk has a sit-down with Spock, who hasn't been acting strangely. He's actually been strategically touching the Klingons in order to better use his telepathic abilities.
Ah, so he's invading their mind without permission. Got it.
Yep. He knows they're planning to sabotage the ship. Unfortunately, he has not found out anything about the actual plan.
Well, that's awkward. Maybe we should, just kind of do a quick search of the ship, make sure there's nothing weird going on.
They could, but unfortunately, they do just still need them. So... on the Klingon ship, they've made a tiny explosive pill that they really, really want us to see because they hold on it for like a whole minute.
Yeah, it's very small, and apparently it's powerful enough to destroy all the things.
Yeah. It's calibrated to go off when the Enterprise reaches warp 8, which they will do as soon as they return to normal space and separate the ships.
Now, if something that's comes in a pill size, are you going to force it down someone's throat or something like that?
That would have been a much better plan.
Yeah.
Later, there's a party on the Enterprise for reasons.
Well, maybe it's just casual Fridays, and it's like, oh yeah, we're trapped in a time thing. Time maybe doesn't have any meaning here, but hey, we can at least throw down for a little while. Come on.
Many of the council members are there, as well as the Klingon crew. Kirk has a brief exchange with the Orion woman who goes, I miss Orion. He goes, you could come with us. And she goes, nah.
You don't even want to try to leave? We're doing all the work here. You could just hitch a ride.
One of the Klingons starts a fight with McCoy because apparently he asked a Klingon woman to dance. Also, I wish that this afro style of Klingon female hair would make a comeback.
More big hair, please. Also, this is another instance where we need to remind the audience that Bones is kind of a player himself, So it's Kirk might eclipse him by quite a bit, but he's still got the moves.
Yes. So the Klingon pulls a disruptor on McCoy, but it doesn't fire because the council is preventing them from fighting, like they said. Meanwhile, the Klingons use this distraction to plant their explosive pill in a computer console.
Well, I guess as far as distractions goes, this is going to be a potential one to bite them in the backside.
Yeah, because the council transports Kirk and Kor to their chambers again. They broke the law, and now they're going to do a freezy freeze on the Klingon ship. But Kirk goes, wait a minute, that would be punishing both of us because we need to leave tomorrow and we can't do it without them. And they go, well, okay then.
All right, so we're not going to actually cause trouble for this plot you're doing on your own anyway. And we're just going to go sit over here now.
Yeah, we were pointless. Bye.
Yes.
Now that the ships have been connected, both Kirk and Kor have a countdown timer ready to go, and they begin to accelerate as one ship. The Council, which is watching psionically, suddenly sees that the Klingons have hidden an explosive device on the Enterprise and are able to send a last-second message that reaches the Enterprise just before they get back to normal space. Spock and Scotty find the pill in the computer bank and toss it out a convenient trash disposal thingy.
Yeah. It's just like a laundry chute that goes out to space.
Yeah, the laundry chute in the hallway that lets you send stuff into the vacuum of space.
Doesn't your house have like 3 of these? Come on.
Marvelous idea. I mean, I have windows, so I guess you could...
Just have to have a little bit more of a throwing arm with that. Well, Earth-based windows there, so...
Both ships return to normal space, reaching Warp 8 and separating, and there's a huge explosion. When it clears, the Enterprise is still there. We actually don't know what happened to the Klingons. If they think that the Enterprise blew up and left or what, we don't really mention it.
Yeah, I was like, well, maybe they gave up, and I was like, yeah, our evil plan didn't work, so we're going to pretend it didn't happen, because that way we're not dishonored. Hooray!
They pick up a transmission from Kor where he takes complete credit for their escape from Elysia. McCoy goes, that stinker, and Kirk goes, that doesn't really matter, because that's what matters, and they show a really boring starscape. It's just like a bunch of tiny dots flying by.
Outer space, that's what's mattered.
It's good to be home.
Yes. Let us go out and explore more space potholes and get trapped places. Cool.
This episode, it's really attached to this idea. They have a speech about it. The minor speech. It's like, yeah, your society's great and it's like peaceful and it's everything we aspire to, but like it's not home.
Yep.
Home has a lot of flaws, but it's not home. This isn't home. I want to be home, which like fine, I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying like, well, you should be perfectly willing to uproot your life to live in a more ideal society, but they don't even mention like this is everything the Federation's been working for generations. Oh my god, you have achieved this.
Yeah, this is pretty neat. Maybe we have something to learn from you. Because the Federation's great and all, but maybe we can get some advice. And if we manage to figure out how to leave, take it with us, and you can enrich the universe. And maybe we'll figure out a way to come back here and extract you all. And that would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
I guess they do have like an interesting kind of Star Trek-y idea of divorced from other societal pressures and things that would make you need to keep fighting each other, you would stop.
Yeah. It is a very much a concept of, all right, so if there's no point in continuing this conflict, what do we do? Do we keep fighting? Do we just ignore each other? Do we figure out how to get along? And it kind of opens up these other options that the demands of our situation maybe don't allow us to even conceive of. And, yeah, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, which they don't necessarily go into. I find this kind of a double-edged concept because on the one side, yeah, it's nice to like say there's no particular reason that we all have to keep not getting along and fighting each other, and when we're put in a situation where we have to work together, we will, and not continue stupid, unnecessary conflicts to the detriment of everyone. But then on the other hand, you get this thing of like, well, the only thing that makes it so that you can stop fighting, really, if you think about it, is if you're forced into a survival situation.
I guess this kind of is, but it's not really sort of delved into in depth there. Though it is kind of, to a certain degree, in terms of Kirk and Kor teaming up to a degree.
Yeah, the Klingons and Federation have like the whole, we're going to form a very uneasy alliance really quickly just to get out of here. But it falls apart immediately. They aren't carrying through the like everyone in Elysium's getting along because they had to out of necessity of just being thrown into this unescapable position. Like Kirk and the Klingons are like, well, we can work towards a common goal briefly, but we're still going to try to kill each other.
Yep. So it's sort of two different ways to sort of respond to this sort of unified situation here. To lay back and just get along with these cool new friends you've made, or try to get back to that world of conflict that we had before and continue those conflicts throughout our efforts to get there. It's kind of a weird lesson.
They don't really show enough of a like codified dichotomy between Kirk's attitude and Kor's attitude. Because like Kirk doesn't try to sabotage the Klingon ship, but he's not really trying to foster much of a spirit of cooperation or anything either. Like the Federation that we've seen in the show isn't going to make a backstabby assault on the Klingons anyway. So it's not like that would be like weirdly out of character. So they're kind of like half behaving normally, but they don't seem to have a like, well, we could all get along if we wanted to message. Isn't this conflict stupid? Why don't we work together? Like, it's fine. We have to work with Klingons to get out of here. My God.
And they even have like a Klingon as part of the Utopia Society Council group there. It would have been kind of interesting for Kor to be kind of like, oh, I'm still going to betray them, and then has a little chat perhaps with that dude over there. It's like, dude, like, I understand you're the glory of the Empire and all that stuff here, but come on. Really? Gonna keep that up here?
Yeah, I know. Why? They didn't like write into the other things in, but like Zen Klingon would have been super interesting.
Yeah. There's just so much opportunity for interesting stuff here, but in the end, the Utopia Council people of Elysium is more terrain than a character, honestly.
They definitely are.
Kind of to a detriment, because we have all these things that we could really explore, but we just kind of don't. I guess it's maybe the most frustrating thing about the episode there.
Well, you run into a weird problem that I don't know why they put this in, because it doesn't actually lead anything. It doesn't create a conflict. It doesn't further the plot. It doesn't do anything in the context of the episode. And it really undermines a lot of the point that they're trying to make. So I don't know why it's in there. You have like 3 layers here, and they all somewhat contradict each other. The first thing is supposed to be, well, we all got forced into this situation from disparate societies and things, but because of the way we were all forced together, we created a more utopian, idyllic society where we can all work together and get along. Like, kind of the ideal dream of the later Federation. Like, we haven't really gotten the Federation codified in Star Trek yet.
Yeah, it's sort of there. It's kind of a alliance sort of thing, but not quite well thought out yet.
Yeah, it's just Space America at this point. Yeah. We haven't gotten to Space UN yet.
Yes.
And the second layer is, it's physically impossible for people to fight because we have so many powerful psychics, or psionics, whatever that's supposed to mean. Anyway, I know it from like D&D, but we can forcibly prevent people from fighting in a very passive, non-harmful way. Like, your weapons and stuff just aren't going to function. We've just turned off all the implements of violence.
So a happiness field for everyone.
Yeah, so we want to get along because of necessity is one level. You can't fight. You actually can't fight even if you wanted to is another level, which seems somewhat unnecessary.
Well, I guess to a certain extent, it's supposed to be to prevent the newcomers from screwing up what they already have. But if the newcomers are just going to bash each other as they show up, that might be something they can just sort of ignore then, but they don't.
Yeah, but they don't even mention it as just a thing for newcomers. It's just like, you can't commit violence at all. That one doesn't bother me as much as their third one, which is, we're supposed to all be getting along. It's physically impossible for us to actually enact violence on each other. But if you try, we have a very harsh, non-negotiable, dictatorial punishment system.
So to a certain degree, this is both a utopia of everyone's getting along, man, but if you are going to even have the intent to harm other people, even if you are physically incapable of doing so, they're going to come down on you like a house of bricks there. It's going to be, you're going to enforce our absolute view here on you by a most extreme means, and that will show you.
And the main thing, the main problem that I see here is that they don't comment on how contradictory that is. This goes kind of without saying, and it enforces this idea that the way to have a utopian nonviolent society is to inflict harsh, uncompromising punishments on people who enact violence.
Which is a little ridiculous and is very retributive sort of punishments there. And we've touched on these sort of things before a few times, but it is kind of in a very stark example here, I guess.
They don't really go into how the society here functions. They obviously don't have a particular scarcity of resources because they never mention it. Everything looks very utopian. It's not a cobbled together society.
And they've just sort of figured out how to have a bunch of cool stuff via the various ships they've picked up over the years, I guess. Just glossed over. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like
they said, it's terrain.
This is obviously still a post-scarcity society, the same as the rest of Star Trek is.
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason that you would have to continue fighting each other in this context would be just biases and grudges and old animosities and things. So they're basically saying that, like, societally you don't have any reason to fight anymore, and supposedly that is like one of the things that keeps you from fighting. But practically the thing that keeps everyone from fighting is that you are physically forced to not fight.
Yes. And specifically it should be pointed out that you're being forced to not fight by the people with the crazy metaphysics, psychic sort of stuff going on there. And so, to a degree, it's kind of be a society controlled by those select few as well.
That as well, and philosophically, the general accepted philosophical definition of violence includes non-physical forms of control, like jailing and laws and restrictions of freedoms.
Yeah, it's like we're going to bind your hands here so you can't hit someone, and that's going to take care of all the violence other than that we've bound your hands.
In a certain way of thinking, the very act of control that they are putting forth, both in the powerful psychic way and in the dictatorial law way, are also forms of violence. It's like that Futurama quote. Like, I postulate that abhorring violence in itself is an act of violence and therefore to be abhorred.
To a certain expansive degree, yes. But less silly here, though. It's very much a situation where there is this sort of veneer of this is a perfect world here, but really it's just a fist with a leather glove on, with a velvet glove on.
Yeah, and they don't even go into how often is this used. Is it used on the people who are here already? Is it, as you've said, something that they only need to enforce on newcomers until they get the picture?
And it's like, well, I've been frozen in time for like 12 centuries at this point because I just couldn't get over myself. But I eventually learned to get along, and I don't have any violent thoughts at all. No, not at all. Don't read my mind, please.
They just leave too many holes here. And then the entire council is presented as so passive. They go like, why don't you come back and leave with us? And instead of the very, very obvious answer of like, I've been here for like 3 centuries, the world that I knew is dead and gone.
Yes. Which would make sense for them to say.
It's just like, nah, I don't think you can really escape. Like, I'm not even sure you're going to destroy yourself. You're probably going to wind up back here. So, but I'm tired. I don't feel like trying, really.
Well, I guess kind of, if you are going to be living for centuries in basically, a small apartment with a few friends, I guess getting kind of bored and super passive might be the way to sort of deal with that.
That is true. And it's not explicitly doing it. They haven't explicitly done it the way that they have in other episodes, quite literally. but they are passively linking nonviolence to absurd levels of passivity, like unhelpful levels of passivity, to the point where they're not solving a basic problem they have.
Like,
Even so, like
nothing.
nonviolence itself, just nonviolence and this kind of approach in itself could be considered to be harmful because you're not actively trying to solve problems anymore, which, like, pacifism and passivity are not the same thing.
And so you got sort of a society here that is very much a don't be messing up my grooves, man, or you'll be sorry. And that's kind of it, honestly.
And the thing is, they didn't actually do this, but if you want to very strictly and completely adhere to pacifist ideals, it is much more difficult, both in the fact that violent means of control are kind of a default we go to and tend to be a simpler, quicker Band-Aid solution that you can use. But also just because societally we have such a built-up importance to violent control, and it runs through so much of our culture and past, so it's kind of the thing that we tend towards anyway. So pacifism actually takes a great deal more effort to achieve than violence generally.
You kind of have to have at least a little bit of self-reflection to understand what things you thought were just sort of normal were actually acts of violence. And how to, and then figure out how to correct that and to figure out a better path that doesn't going to include those.
Well, we've talked about this before, and the only particular way to remove violence from a society, into the extent that you can, I guess willful violence, because you may always wind up with some level of, like, people who are no longer in control of their mental faculties and situations like that, and extreme emergencies where you have to enact a quick amount of control over someone for their own personal safety. But the only particular way to remove as much violence as possible from a society is not to overly restrict it, but to remove the things that make violence necessary in the first place.
So if it doesn't make sense for you to be doing this violent thing, then why would you do it if there's a much simpler and easier way to go?
And I will say there's almost a certain logic to the way they're presenting the stuff in this episode, because in a complete post-scarcity society like we must assume they have here, since resources do not seem to be a relevant issue,
they have a super replicator.
The only thing that they seem to be missing is the ability to leave.
Yes.
So
that's the one thing they lack.
All of the people who are perpetrating the nonviolence now have simply stopped wanting to do that. So they've removed the only thing that they don't have.
Yeah, so they have literally gotten rid of all want by not wanting one thing.
Which I think is a common misunderstanding of Buddhism, but
it's like, so if you just stop caring, that's the same thing, right? Not quite.
But overall, they tried to do an okay message that they just wound up with too many self-contradictory ideas here.
Indeed. So it gets a bit frustrating. And that's why I wanted so much more from this episode, but they just kept missing opportunities for making things interesting.
Now, I will say, we're not going to be covering this for ages, but anyone who's also seen the similarities between this and the Voyager episode, The Void, where the ship is caught in an inescapable region of space, but because it's an isolated region of space, there actually aren't any resources. Everyone's the only way to gain new resources is to attack ships that enter into the void and steal from each other.
Indeed. So it's this new ship has doesn't know what's up yet. They don't know to raise their shields quick enough, so let's just go attack them and steal all their dilithium and hydrogen and plants.
And I do think that overall that episode had some flaws, but I really liked it on a more message level, because it's something that it's kind of a microcosm of stuff that they were trying to do in Voyager, which I know people criticize this because people just love this grim, dark crap that we've gotten into recently. But the central message that they had in Voyager that they really hit on in that episode is, it's difficult to live up to your own ideals, but doing so will always be better than abandoning them.
And so instead of becoming pirates and raiders like everybody else, you're like, maybe we can rebuild the Federation on a smaller scale here in order to solve this, unified problem that we all have, and, not have to go around killing each other for it, for the bare minimum resources we have available.
And then it works, and they even take a hard line and expel members that aren't going along with what they are trying to do, and that, has better outcomes later. And it's like, no, we're not compromising our morals.
Yeah, we're going to be 100 legit here. If you are on board, this is what it takes. So if you do not agree to that, bye.
And people disagree with that in that show a lot, which is something that I don't get from Star Trek fans. Why are you interested in this if you want them to be a grim, dark betrayal of everything that they're supposed to stand for? But there is something to that, which again, they didn't do in this episode. But there's something to the idea of we are upholding the ideals that we believe in strongly enough that abandoning them would be the same thing as abandoning who we are. So if we're gonna die defending our ideals, fine.
I'm reminded of a moment in another show, Stargate Universe, which is kind of the, I guess, grimdark version of the Stargate franchise. Though I wouldn't say it's super grimdark. It's just very dark at a set level. But there is one moment where one of the characters, a side character that's sort of an occasional sort of person who pops in, is basically, it's if we abandon these principles and start going out and torturing and being awful to people, things like that, it's basically abandoning everything that I'm trying to fight for in being here in the first place. And that just doesn't make it worth it. I kind of like that at moment there, because it's sort of a reminder that, the events of the Void there, it's if we're not going to have, these things that define us at all, and we're just going to be, wild out there and trying to bash each other's head in and all that sort of stuff, what's the point?
There was this very good metaphor that someone I know came up with, which is basically if you're all trapped in a bomb shelter, and you have basically no idea if you're going to get out, you have two choices. You can all share the remaining food, do everything you can to make everyone as comfortable and happy as possible, and then all die. Or you can try to hoard food and fight and kill a bunch of people and wind up alone in the middle of a bunker with a lot of corpses and die anyway.
Yep. So, which way do you want to go?
So, like I said, this episode's pretty thin. I brought in other episodes to talk about. I understand you had some kind of research on the Bermuda. You had some kind of research on the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, it's pretty low level, real top level, I guess, research here. But basically, the Bermuda Triangle is sort of similar sort of regions of all the ships disappear over there that crop up occasionally, kind of as a superstition sort of thing. But it's one of the ones that sort of persisted in the public consciousness more than most, because it is, one that has a kind of cool name. Bermuda is kind of, a neat sort of it's like Caribbean, but it's not sort of thing going on here as far as people sort of how they think about these sorts of names. And what more, there's been a lot of TV over the years, especially the last 50 years or so. They're like, ooh, the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Triangle, all sorts of weird stuff goes on there. And obviously it's a mixture of Atlantis and aliens abducting people or something like that. Which is generally kind of a bit of a stretch, you could say. Because there is multiple different reasons why things in that, various crafts and things like that traveling through what is known as the Bermuda Triangle have actually disappeared. And it's not aliens or Atlantis magic. So first off, what is the Bermuda Triangle? Gepin, do you have good feel of what it is?
That's a weird section of ocean between Bermuda and a couple of other islands that form a triangle, because any 3 points form a triangle, and people keep forgetting this.
Yes. Generally somewhere near Puerto Rico is one of the other corners, and Western Bahamas or Miami, depending on which map you're looking at for the other corner. And it should be noted that in terms of how, where ships go and things like that, this is a pretty busy area of the world, just in general, and has been for centuries. It's like, oh yes, we're going to go to the Caribbean, and we're going to do all our colonialism stuff. So we're going to come in, below the Tropic of Cancer there, and hang out hit up our various islands as we sort of go northwest. And then when we're done with our colonialism business, we're going to turn sort of northeast and try to follow the Gulf Stream up back to Europe. And that's kind of takes you right through the Bermuda Triangle. And so if you, say, have a ship sink anywhere between, the Virgin Islands or whatever there, and getting back home to Europe, then, oh no, you've been lost in the Bermuda Triangle. Even if you sunk near New York or something like that. So it is sort of this is the last point where people remember talking to you, as opposed to this is actually where ships are sinking sort of thing. So there's a little bit of a societal sort of, trickery going on here where, this is like, oh yes, this is where the information of last known contact is. So obviously, since all those last known contacts are right next to where people actually are living right now, that means that they're disappearing right away next to those last known contacts, when that might not actually be the case. Now there are, so that's sort of a little bit of the historical sort of, explanation for things here. But there's also, other things that kind of matter for this part of the world. There is, say, hurricanes that come through the area. And before we had like good satellite tracking for such things, and weather reports that would be able to be radioed in from across the Atlantic, it's like, hey, there's a hurricane coming from you. Prepare for like a few weeks here. You're going to be having it's like, oh, where it's a nice day, and then suddenly it's not a nice day, and our ship, airplane, whatever is going to be torn up. And we're going to disappear forever. And oh no, because no one actually remembers where the hurricane is today. We just unexplained disappearance. Dun dun dun. Then of course there's the human error factors. Some people will be like, we're just going to go out there and it's going to be fine because we're close to the U.S. shore here. If anything happens, we could radio in and everything's going to be great. And we're inexperienced sailors because we just bought a yacht and went out in the ocean. Whoops. We got ourselves killed because we ran out of supplies and forgot to actually charge a radio battery or something like that. So there's sort of a lot of these things that kind of come together to make it look like there's an elevated number of disappearances in this area, when it's just sort of those things conspiring to make it look like there's something weird going on. There's also things with like airplanes. It's like, okay, so we're gonna go out there and we're gonna be searching for a plane or boat that disappeared here, and our flight's gonna go out, and we're gonna put extra fuel on our airplane in order to make sure that we can do the whole search pattern. And because we're in the 40s here, we also have airplanes that explode when they have too much fuel sometimes. So, extra fuel plus a squadron of these planes that explode when there's too much fuel on them can sometimes lead to a bad time. And so it's very much there's all these very plausible explanations for why things disappear there that just kind of get swept under the rug here because people want to see the mystery of it, the alternative explanations, the space cryptid, I guess, of the Bermuda Triangle being a thing. And it's just sort of perpetuated over years and decades into being this idea that just sort of percolates in our head. And episodes like this of Star Trek, where they sort of reference this, are contributing to that as well. And it's sort of keeping in the public consciousness and trying to, perhaps unintentionally perpetuate the misunderstanding of what's actually going on in the area. That's my long rundown of the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, it becomes one of these self-reinforcing tropes. Because
exactly.
The idea of the Bermuda Triangle didn't actually even come into public consciousness until like the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
When we started seeing articles about it. And Americans love this whole like, oh, mystery just off the coast. Because, anything south of Florida is like, oh my God, another freaking world. But
it's distant, it's far, it's only a few hundred miles out. Technically, Virginia's closer, but
But it becomes
further away.
It becomes a self-reinforcing trope, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And like, people talk about this kind of like, oh, people start believing in fantasy stuff and whatever. It's like not particularly. Like some people like give more weight to these things than others, but in story terms, these things are very useful, so they do keep getting used. Because instead of having to go, well, there's a secret area of the ocean where disappearances happen. Who knows why? Been happening for many years. Yada da 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 da. It's the Bermuda Triangle, and everyone's just already caught up.
Yes. Oh, okay. So not the Sir also see which the Bermuda Triangle is part of, but just the triangle. Got it. I know what you're talking about here, and I don't have to look up things about sea currents at the same time. Excellent.
Yeah, so these things become useful narrative shorthand for a particular concept, and then keep getting used and referenced over and over and over and over until they just become such shorthand and they enter the public consciousness as something approaching reality. Like this was still being used in like episodes of Voyager and TV now. Like it's a thing that it's writer shorthand. Nobody particularly takes this as seriously as people seem to think. Just people get annoyed that it keeps getting used.
As someone who likes to sort of explore the possibilities of concepts and things like that, shorthands both can be useful, but they can also be overplayed. And the Bermuda Triangle is one of the ones that I feel personally is kind of overplayed. But I do understand the usefulness of it all the same.
It has definitely become overplayed because it's just a like general mystery vibe. I still even remember like the Phantom movie. They discover the secret island. It's like, oh my God, dead in the center of the Bermuda Triangle.
Dun, dun, dun.
Why?
Oh no, our map's upside down. This is actually Bouvet Island. Never mind. Which is the bit of land that's farthest from any other land on the world. Anyway, but yeah, it's sort of, it's, I guess it is very much a Darmok situation, you could say.
That is true. It is our sort of narrative shorthand. Like if you told someone who wasn't familiar with it, Bermuda Triangle, they would have no idea what you're talking about. So it's a shared story language that's been developed over the last 70 some odd years that we just have all learned to use and recognize. Like Bermuda Triangle, Atlantis, there's just half a dozen. Here's a thing that we all understand means this particular thing when you're dealing with sea stuff. And then of course you put it in space and go the whatever triangle, and it's become so ubiquitous that it's like putting gate after things. You understand that the suffix gate means scandal of some description. I think it's stupid, but apparently that's what we've all agreed on.
Yes. They did try water instead at one point, but no one really got excited about it, so they went back to gate. I guess then I could say things like, Balloon Boy to the Bermuda Triangle, the peasants rejoiced. And that would kind of make sense for people who know the references. Would you like me to explain them? Or
no, I think that's fine. I think people get it. And if they don't, they can look it up, because the internet's a thing.
Yes. The internet is this expansive thing, and it's been described as a series of tubes and not a big truck, so I enjoy that. I'm going to start memeing here if I'm not too excessively here. Gepwood, I need... I need a lifeline.
If we're memeing, I think it's definitely become time for the galaxy's favorite game show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the game show portion of the show where I've got various contestants here who have been racking up all sorts of prizes. Some of these prizes are a little ridiculous, some of them are not, but our various contestants, well, they often fit with their prizes pretty well here all the same. So what's our first one here? Our first one here looks to be the Highlander Prize, which goes to kind of everybody stuck in the pocket dimension for obvious reasons, but kind of confusing reasons at the same time, because time really shouldn't work like that. What do they win, Gepwin?
They win a nice sword display case, because it's not necessary anymore. This is the version of the Highlander where they just went, let's just all live forever and not worry about it.
There we go. There could be only us, I guess. Our second prize is the fake paradise prison, which goes to the pocket dimension itself, as it offers immortality, but you gotta bring your own ship, and locals are really bland and boring, and so it's not really a paradise if you do more than a little digging underneath here. What does it win, Gepwin?
They win that giant ball thing from the prisoner, because like the way that they're controlling people here, they may as well. Just the ship goes out, giant bouncy hot air balloon ball thing comes and grabs you and takes you back.
And it's really awkward, and you're like, I'm stuck in a weather balloon, and this is kind of exciting, actually. Anyway, our final prize today is Wash's Dinosaurs, which goes to Core and the Klingons for their sudden but inevitable betrayal. What do they win, Gepwin?
The Klingons win the sudden and inevitable betrayal. It always just works that way. They try to betray, they get betrayed, their thing doesn't work out. I'll catch you next time, Gadget.
Next time.
The Klingons are blasting off again. Ding.
Those wacky Klingons. What are they going to get up to next? Using weird swords to try to stab everyone or something like that? I guess we'll find out.
Probably.
Or maybe they're
yeah.
maybe they'll meet a giant space computer and get digitized or something like that. Anyway, take us away, Gepwin. And get us the heck out of this triangle of nonsense.
Yeah, so thank you all for joining us in this triangle of prizes on the galaxy's favorite game show.
We did, in fact, have 3 prizes.
Haha, you did that on purpose, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes I go with 4, sometimes I go with 5. Sometimes I think I've even done 7 for that segment there. But this time it had to be 3. So 9 could have worked. 27.
Couldn't there be like any infinite number of points as long as they were lined up right?
Kinda. Well, you could also have some craziness here where if you have non-Euclidean space and you suddenly it's like, yes, all these right angles make a triangle.
Yeah, maybe it's a non-Euclidean triangle and that's why it exists in space.
It gets twisted around, and so there's technically only 2 dimensions to any small section of it. But you go down like a half an inch and you run into a different part that's been curved back on itself.
For Lovecraft fans who think non-Euclidean means space aliens, it means any geometry not taking place in a flat surface.
Yep. Say the surface of the Earth, in fact. Technically any geometry done on the surface of the Earth is non-Euclidean.
Hey,
more you know.
Next episode, speaking of well-worn ocean tropes.
We're gonna go where it's wetter, where it's better, under the sea.
We have the ambergris element.
Mm-hmm. So Which element is that on the periodic table?
I don't know. It's the one inside of a whale that you use to make perfume. And seems to be Star Trek Atlantis. It wasn't as successful of a spin-off as Stargate Atlantis.
Nope. Though we do get some webbed hands here, it looks like.
Yep.
And like shrimp things, I guess, and monsters trying to eat people.
Fish people. All the fish people.
Seaweed hair.
So that
that's a thing that we're going to be watching next time.
I've got no idea what to expect from this. It's Sea Atlantis. So look forward to that next week on Watchers of Tomorrow.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Kirk and Spock get very wet. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.